And it says I'm live. I should probably move the microphone closer. There we go. You know, some people really don't like it when it's in scene at all. Sorry for those that don't like it. I don't know. It's clearly a bothersome thing to some people. I don't know why. Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 386. 386, like the 386 processor. That's all I keep thinking here. Let's see. There we go. I'll turn my phone off. Oh, look, Windows would like me to do a thing. Whatever the thing is, remind me later. A journey with Windows. No. It's not even compatible with Windows 11, so sorry. I'm 2 minutes late for being early. 28 people, 8 likes. Let's get that going. Greetings from Northern VA. Awesome. The 8-bit sign. So let's talk about that. That's something in there. You know, I've been plugging things a bit here. Where would this be? Is it under, when you get so much stuff, it's great. But let's browse my store together. I have a lot of things in my store. We'll start there because it seems like a good place to start for episode I-386. Is it under? Oh, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. This one is available. I'm in an open source relationship, so I will drop a link in it. If anyone didn't find it, shop.launchsystems.com. So definitely adding a lot more things in there. Afternoon, Cody. Yeah, I don't want it to be, I don't necessarily want it in the frame, but when you're closer to the mic, you get better voice. You get better. I think it works better. I don't know. It's one of those things you don't think about as much unless you're listening to yourself in headphones. So Milton Keys. I don't know, or Milton. I'm curious. I've never heard of this place. KE. And me not hearing of it completely doesn't mean it's not a really famous place. Where is this? Oh, okay, cool. I know where that is now. I won't know most of the town names and things like that. I'm bad about that. Evening all, Sweden checking in a little bit before bedtime. Yeah, it's kind of late in the EU area. Do I have a warehouse in the EU? I don't actually do the fulfillment. All this is being done by a company named Fourthwall. They're actually doing the fulfillment on the back end for me for things. If we can get enough orders and things like that in a predictable manner, there could be a time when I do some of the fulfillment, but doing fulfillment and predicting all that is difficult. So that is maybe one day. One of them as cool as the Linus Tech Tips people. So that'll absolutely be a thing. Hello from Croatia. Awesome. 404 stream? No, not today. It's too nice outside. Too nice outside. I'm going to cover some topics and things like there. You can sell some merch, maybe buy a shotgun mic and then get the close-up sound from far away. I use a shotgun mic when I'm not doing live streams because I technically could loop this through my main setup. But I've run into issues occasionally doing it. It's just because there's some tuning I need to finish. And maybe I'll do that one day. I do have a really nice, I don't know, it's like $500 or $600 shotgun mic. That's what all my other videos are recorded with. I only record my live streams with my Blue Yeti. So all the other stuff's done with a Sennheiser shotgun mic. Jordan, hello. Dresden, Germany, Mumbai. Isn't it a bit cool up here? Yeah, Jason's traveling, so he's in a much warmer spot today than me. I will be down there next week, so I will get that out of the way. First place, if you are going to IT Nation Secure, I will be there next week. There is a chance I will be hanging out on stage with Jason if he wants me invited to his talk. 97 there. No, it is. How warm is it here in day? I just look at my phone. Today is 72. I mean, 72 is like a wonderful temperature for me. Some people may want a warmer temperature. I think 72 is perfect. Have you seen the new temp sensor for Pi from Craft Computing? If so, what do you think about it? I got to see it, and I'll probably get it before other people. I've actually known Jeff was building that for a while, so there's actually a few of us that are insiders that knew Jeff was building it. I think it's really cool. I like why he's doing it. So yes, I don't have one in my hands yet, so Did I see the new UniFi video? Yeah, I might do a video. So here's the thing, and this is the challenge when you sign some agreements. I get to test things. I have a EA label in early access and alpha access on my store now. Not my store, my the UniFi, what do you call that? The dashboard. Anyways, me and UniFi, they wanted me to try out a few things. And so I said, yes. So I've been able to test early release things. This is part of the reason I've been delaying the video when people ask me to do a comparison video between like UniFi and Synology. I'm like, well, I can't talk about the features, and it's pointless to do a video on the 3.0 series with the 4.0 stuff just about here. So now that it's out, I'm going to be able to do the video, and I want to do a comparison because a lot of people ask about the features of Synology versus the features, and they're not in feature parity still, but they're a lot closer. And there's so many changes. I figured it was worth waiting to do that as a video. So 80 degrees is too hot. Yeah, it kind of depends. It kind of depends on the person. Yeah. Shotgun mics, a phase someone has to go through. I don't know. They each have their pros and cons. The shotgun mic is perfectly placed out of like it's my audio. I think I don't have any problems with. Matter of fact, when I talk about updating the studio, I get frequent comments like, "Hey, don't mess with your audio because it works." So, was checking the changelog. Any interesting things in the new TrueNAS update? I guess it's a good place to start. Is the TrueNAS updates, and nothing really groundbreaking to report. The groundbreaking problems already happened. And I'm running the latest version, so I've already been updating servers, which I'm glad I had to wait an extra day to update servers, or I would have ran into a problem with it. Hold on. Yep, refresh page. There you go. So if you notice here, it's not version 2404.1, it's 0.11. There were some issues they had on there. So it's a bunch of little stuff. That's actually not the big TrueNAS announcement. The big TrueNAS announcement, this is just a lot of bug fixes. So it definitely update to it. The 0.1 release is because there were circumstances people had where some of the apps weren't starting. So they had a 0.1 release for that. No big deal. I mean, it is to the people that wasn't starting for, but they were like 24 hours later with an update. And there was workarounds for it. So you weren't left in the lurch. You could revert back to previous version because there wasn't a ZFS update or anything like that. So you could just roll back until the problem was solved. And the problem was solved in like another day. So is it under there? Where is it going to be? Go over to the blog post on here. There we go. But this has got the changelog in here. Nothing super fancy. I mean, updated kernel, updated Samba, rclone updated, fixes to address ZFS archives and sets of swap uses leading to performance degradation. So yeah, there's circumstances where these things could be fixed. Actually, I didn't notice that they called this VM swappiness set to 1. You gotta change your swappiness. But network reporting numbers for apps like this was a bug that kind of, I didn't really notice it when I first loaded, but it would tell you even apps that were at idle would have weird usage of how much bandwidth they're using, which I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that number, I know this app isn't doing anything right now. It's a bug. And I didn't look. I assumed enough people had probably pointed it out that it would get fixed in the next update. But so it's a lot of little stuff in here. The bigger news is going to be this. The future of electric Eel and apps. There's been some great progress on the app scale and Kubernetes K3s has been integrated. A catalog system is built to easily web UI manage of the apps. CFS has been modified for Docker overlay FS to better handle snapshots from containerized applications and custom Dockers. Containers can now be downloaded and run directly via the web UI. and custom Docker containers. That's going to be the bigger way forward with them. I'm going to play with probably Electric Eel on some, set it up on my lab. I want to help be part of the solution of beta testing and sorting out what could be better with the Docker apps. So I think that's a big step forward in their what they're doing. So my overall opinion, if you are wondering if you should update, the initial bugs were found. The point release, you don't have to do them incrementally. By the way, if you download the latest update, it gathers the latest, including a point release. And yeah, it is just a it's a good way forward that they're doing this. And go ahead and update to the latest version to keep yourself current and have those latest fixes. Just check shipping Europe is only €8 for me, so not bad. I want to order any Lawrence swag. Awesome. So they do have. I didn't look at the European shipping. I believe we checked all the box, but cool that they have it. What do you think someone should look at for TV channels that do not buffer, but others do? They're all on FHD. Some TV channels. I don't know. I don't know much. I mean, I'm assuming you mean streaming channels. I'm not sure. I don't do much with TV stuff. If you're asking about TV, I guess I'd have to know the underlying network behind it. But there's only some channels and not others. It's probably something related to the service that streams them. I'm not a hardware. Nobody should need to swap anymore. Maybe. Banks are big on Fortinet. I wanted a local to work. Yeah, Fortinet. Probably missed some context up there, but yeah. I will laugh at this one. The world speaks Celsius, guys. What are you doing? I live in a world that doesn't. Any insights for RDMA support on this? Nope, no insights for RDMA. I don't know what the status of that is. Post in our forums is my best answer for that. Can VMs hosted on TrueNAS connect to storage yet? Remember that being an issue they were refusing to fix a while ago. Yeah, I don't think they've changed their mind on that. Maybe I'll bug people again on that because it seems like, hey, you should probably fix this. You can get around it by building a bridge. There's a bridge as a fix. So there's a fix for it. Maybe I'll do a video on the fix. I didn't want to do a video on the fix because I want them to not do that. That's the better solution because it creates two problems. One, people who would like their VMs talking directly to their storage. Second problem, when I SSH into the jump box that happens to be running on my TrueNAS, and that's all I really use it for. I can't also SSH into the TrueNAS because, that's how it's set up. And I think that's silly because I didn't bother setting up the bridge. You are on TrueNAS Core if you're running version 13. So you'd have to switch over to Scale if you wanted to be on the latest one. ChannelCon changed your talk title. That's funny. So did they put little asterisks over the words you would prefer to use? Is the real question. The ChannelCon talk is going to be fun that Jason's doing. There's been some debate about what his title can be for that. Do you know how to configure SAML 2 with LDAP, OpenVPN, pfSense, 2FA, and LDAP? And no. I don't know if there's support for that. Okay, so the new title is "Do MSPs Suck?" is what it should say at cybersecurity. Yes. Can you use containers to access TrueNAS? Like, are you asking whether they will support mount points? So inside of TrueNAS, when you go to the applications, and I imagine this will be the same. I don't know. This is why some testing has to be done, how they're going to implement it with Docker containers. But I'll assume, because technically these are also Docker, that they're just going to use the host path mounts like they do in here. So you're going to be able to do host path mounts. Oh, chocolate. And that will do the trick. Thank you. I'm assuming. I hope that would make a lot of sense. I don't get it. It's a storage solution with a nice bonus so we can run VMs. It was primarily a VM host, a VM understanding restriction. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. And as me and Jason Slagle will tell you, the that spicy chocolate, by the way, it's just cayenne. It's not too hot. It caught me a little bit. It's cherry and cayenne. All right. Off of that. From the business side, business production side, we don't do this. We have lots of clients with TrueNAS systems. We have none of them, to my knowledge, running any type of VMs on them. That's pretty rare from the business use case. Usually they're like a target for SMB for file sharing, or they're an iSCSI target, or they're an NFS target for storage of Linux servers or VMs and things like that. But yeah, you do in the production world, you're not seeing it. In the world of home lab, people are trying to condense as much as they can down to one server. I got to admit, because I'm running a few apps, I mean, there's no doubt that running a few apps on there can be very convenient. I mean, this is not stuff you may want to run in a normal environment or production, but hey, I like the fact that I can run MinIO and use it as a storage target, running it in a container. And it's not a VM, so it's not exactly the same. You got to seed your ISOs. So we have our, Qt BitTorrent running. We have the rsync, so I can rsync with my Synologies for backing them up. And I love syncing. This is how I keep all my files in sync. And it just works. It works very well. And hey, look, the numbers are even apparently displaying properly here. These look much better. They used to just display all of them would be sometimes in sync. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. I think the RAM was correct on them before. It doesn't take much RAM to run these. rsync runs a pretty small sync thing, 56 megs. Wow. Let's see. Will pfSense ever support ZArmor? I don't know. I think you can load it on pfSense. I don't think it's ever going to be an official plugin. The problem with hyperconverged infrastructure is good and bad. It's one of those problems you run into. Like, there was a lot of VMware licenses sold for it to bundle it all together and try to build it, but there can be some performance issues with it, and there might be reasons you want them to be separate instances as opposed to packing everything into one server. Especially if you have like a large storage array, it may be more convenient or more cost effective, I should say, to have one large storage array and a series of hosts that are all working on it, as opposed to trying to synchronize all those hosts and have a the challenges that can come with going, hey, I'm trying to write data here, but I also would like it to write on the other host simultaneously and synchronize them all. That has a high compute cost to it as well. So it's not that hyperconverged is bad. It just creates some of the different challenges. When a client needs SSL Decrypt and DPI, what's your go-to? Fortinet, Sophos, Meraki. None of those. We use a tool right now called Zoros. SSL Decrypt is just getting worse every iteration. More and more companies are pinning things. Doing it on the endpoint is the best solution. Doing it at the firewall is a terrible idea. It's just too much of a headache. That's my answer for SSL inspection. Matter of fact, I'm really there's not many companies that even get it right by doing it with the appliances, and the ones that do are stupidly expensive. In a world, I'd run XCP-ng and just expose this in a VM running in TrueNAS. That's another way to do it too. If you're not hosting your VMs on a SAN or NAS, how do you rack vMotion? In XCP-ng, you can just migrate them, even if the storage, you don't have to have shared storage to do live migrations in XCP-ng, for example. Oh, I believe Proxmox doesn't need it either. I need to run customer Win10 image on my Linux laptop. What hypervisor? Out of laziness, I know there's other ones out there, and someone can criticize me on this. VirtualBox on my Linux system works great for running Windows things. I have a VirtualBox instance. I have Windows loaded on it for when I need to do Windows things. It's kind of been my easy solution. Uh, I use MinIO for backing things up on XCP and G, and MinIO as a target. It also works as a S3 object storage for some remote Synologies as well. It's been on my to-do list to try CrowdSec's integration with pfSense. I think CrowdSec's an awesome project. I've talked about it before. Um, they've got their own repository with a package in it. My challenge is I don't open that many ports, so it's not particularly effective for me. If you're opening a lot of ports all the time, sure. I'm always encouraging people to stop opening so damn many ports because it's you're trying to band-aid up, and this is why partly why CrowdSec exists. Some things, obviously, web servers is great. Put CrowdSec in front of your web server, your WordPress instance, etc. So we can, have a nice managed list of bad IP addresses that are doing the attacking, because we know most of the attacks do come from a very small number of IP addresses. But generally speaking, quit opening up so many ports. And it's like, for most small businesses, they're not opening as many ports anymore, at least the ones we manage. I'm not saying there's certainly way too many people who just decided RDP can be open. But yeah, the the number of people opening ports and kind of like, why are you opening so many ports? Overlay VPNs are a thing. OpenVPN works great. Any certificate based like VPN where you're not having to have like a web interface logged in, just stick. You don't really need CrowdSec as much because you're not having as much inbound. But if you are, I mean, it's definitely a cool thing to do. Unified supply chain in Europe. Can't get my hands on a Gateway Ultra for months. Yeah, it's supply chain is a challenging thing. Do you come across OpenWRT at clients? Not real. Well, we have zero of it we manage. Do I think this exists because the OpenWRT project's kind of cool? I think it's still kind of a cool project, but I wouldn't run any businesses on it. It's a neat project. It's kind of waning in some ways, I think, my opinion, that there's just not as many. You either are a home user that's just fine running it, but then you go, well, I kind of like all those extra features I get in pfSense, and I can buy some inexpensive hardware and run pfSense on it, and that seems to kind of fit the need. And pfSense has way more features than OpenWRT, but OpenWRT is not a terrible project, and it does run on some small devices. I think OpenWRT is actually loaded on some of the small, what do you call those, travel routers and things like that. So it's not definitely far from dead, but I don't know if it's popular. And I don't know that it really is a place in the business market. Oh, let's see. Catching up on these. Would you recommend running pfSense on a mini PC? HP G300, Lenovo, adding. The moment you have to add USB Ethernet, that's a no. Anything you're doing, it's USB Ethernet. Don't do that. The UniFi access points are based on OpenWRT, not actually. UniFi, the operating system, is Debian, but it's also loosely related to Viata before it forked onto Vios. So that's where the UniFi firewall stuff comes from. But yeah, the devices, the UniFi, the Frisbees run on a very modified version of an OpenWRT. Matter of fact, there are projects where you can reflash these with OpenWRT to make them independently managed. Do that again. So I don't use OpenSense, and I don't plan to use OpenSense. So no, I don't plan to do a video on doing that with OpenSense. So the buffer bloat video though is pretty cool. We only need necessary outbound ports that are needed. We find that 75% of businesses need 443, and that's it. Any proxy will shoot. I mean, outbound filtering, yeah, it can work. You're probably right. Most things only need a handful of ports anymore. There's a lot less random services. They exist. It just depends on the client base you have. For your customer base, what kind of VM storage options do you see deployed? How do you account for large disk migration of guests you come across? Uh, the same solutions I talk about on my channel are still common. Now, we still, CNWR, the behind the scenes, um, is still doing a lot of VMware because it's out there, it exists. But we do ourselves a lot of TrueNAS, Synology, and XCP-NG. That's another offering that we have. We definitely sell a lot of when it comes specifically to the storage, Synology and TrueNAS, including the 45 drives. Also, we're a TrueNAS IX systems reseller. So there's some of those devices that we have sold as well. Would I rather see Proxmox or UniFi? I don't think Proxmox is getting into the SAN NAS distro, and I wouldn't UniFi. I don't think they know what they're in for to get into that. Yeah, TP-Link is OpenWRT based, and then they sprinkle their magic on top. Some of the magic they sprinkled on top made the news the other day because they somehow had a stupid WAN port open, allowing a vulnerability. So I wish they would just why can't these companies, and this would solve some of their problem, like if all the cheap companies would just go, hey, instead of spending engineering time making horrible software that always has some crazy vulnerability, like, UPnP that you can't turn off, and someone being able to pivot into the network, how about we just start running OpenWRT on these things and actually just OpenWRT, smack anyone's hand who touches it. But that's not how the world works. It's the same way that, years ago when Android's like, here's our reference spec. And all the companies are like, we can load garbage on top of it, right? We can stick bloatware on top of it. And I kind of feel that's where the other companies are. The TP-Link vulnerability that was just posted the other day was dumb. And you're like, why is it? It shouldn't this. Yeah, if they would have just stuck with OpenWRT, this wouldn't be a problem. Um, I installed pfSense Plus on Dell Optus, but now I want to install a mini PC, save on power, will Netgate allow activation license? You can move your license. Yeah. Outbound filtering is very effective. Yeah. I mean, it's something that you could do. It's just as long as you are aware that it's turned on, like document it at the client, and be prepared if you find something that doesn't work. But yeah, actually, you shouldn't have you should have like a guest network where you don't worry about it, because the devices that will cause you the problem are usually the ones that are going, that shouldn't be on the business side of the network. Oh, it's having problems. Why is your aquarium having problems connecting to the internet? And why is the aquarium on the network that's, has the extra security and filtering on it? I actually did see the environmental thing before he released it. So I actually, I'm aware of it. Me and Jeff's been talking about it since me and Jeff and numerous other YouTubers. We're all part of a group that me and Jay from Learn Linux TV started a while back, and we all chat about all the projects. So yes, I got to know about that ahead of time. I thought it was a really cool idea. I'm happy to see it come to full release because he's been working on it for a little while. Definitely cool. With all the license problems of Citrix and others at the moment, how to realize proper VDI? Windows works with RDP kind of well, but Linux really inferior performance. VDI is dumb. That's my answer. I know people don't like that answer. VDI is not ideal. We should just be, I know we have it because of legacy apps, but we should be moving more towards web-based applications and things that don't need to emulate an entire computer, then take the screen of that computer and pipe it down to someone. That doesn't make logical sense to me. Maybe I'm weird, but there's not a lot of good answers for that. And I really don't see the purpose in doing it in Linux at all. Most of the time you just want to deliver an application, and that application is ancient. So the only way it can be done is through normal screen rendering. And so we have lots of people using VDI, which ties you to things like Citrix and the few companies that are doing it. This is kind of just a legacy problem. I believe as the future moves forward, more things are going to be web-based, and we kind of don't have this issue anymore. So I don't see anybody who wants to or should be putting the effort into it, because it's one of those things that I believe is going to fade away over time. Let's see. Do you think it's safe to block port 80? I would still keep 80 open. That might be a lot of things. Check 80 and go to 443 because 80 sends them there. There's probably a lot of, I mean, you could try it, but I have a feeling a lot of things would break with egress filtering. Maybe I should do a video on egress filtering and see what breaks on my network and talk about that. This too, if a lot of certificate revocation checks and AI certificate chain building, that's a good point as well. You will start running into issues like that because a lot of them start the process over port 80. See, let's see. What do you use for SNMP monitoring and learning? At CNWR, and not sponsored, but maybe I should have them as a sponsor because I've shouted them out a few times. We use AUVIC for monitoring and reporting. AUVIK. VDI. I agree to a point. A VDI user here. Miles better than VPN. Many times more secure option for remote access. I don't know how VDI is a more secure, but I don't know. I'm not sure what makes it a more secure option, but we can go with that, I guess. You still got to, VPN over to it, so to speak. That's still a thing. So there's that. SNMP, huge fan. I've heard people mention Observium. I don't use it. I've used Zabbix, which has the ability to do that before, but I don't really monitor any of my stuff with Zabbix anymore. I shut it down. I just didn't need it anymore. So, but yeah. What are you going to do a video on AUVIC? I'm probably, if they pay me, maybe. By the way, if you want a video on AUVIC, go talk to AUVIC. They have lots of, stuff they will share. I'm not really the video on AUVIC person, but I am. Let's talk about this because this is in my list here. So we know they have the new version, and we're not supposed to talk, I know, about the things that are in the beta releases that I've been seeing, but I will share this because I don't think there's been enough people sharing it that I don't think anyone at UniFi would be mad for this because it's, this is a positive thing. And it's in release candidate now, I believe. It's going to be here soon. Hold on. Let me get to the page. There we go. Finally. DNS. Look at this. Add custom DNS registry for devices. Yes, this is early release. I don't know if I'm supposed to share it or not, but it's a positive thing. And they've talked about it and people tweeted about it. So yes, I'm not doing a review of it. I'm not violating, my early NDA stuff. So now it's in release candidate, but yes, they got the DNS for things like finally. So I'm happy about that. That's my exciting UniFi announcement. Besides the UniFi, their new camera stuff has definitely gotten a lot better. VDA still makes sense for those applications would have to eat a bunch of information. I don't really know. You know what? Here's an example I wanted to talk about here. So while I was booting up something else in the background, kind of to talk about it. The, when you look at everything you can do inside of just a web browser to get things done, I kind of feel like we don't necessarily need as much VDI stuff. I haven't done a video on this. Maybe I will at some point in time. We'll do new tab. But it's talking about this right here, the Kasm stuff. And I look at what you can do inside of Kasm and everything else and how well this works. And I'm just like, yeah, this is, I can do a Kasm Workspace for this. We'll do a new tab for a Kali, fire up a Kali Linux workspace. I mean, stuff like this works so well that I'm just like, I don't know. It's like we could do so much inside the browser. This is all just browser rendered, and it lets me, spin up and run these. Then we got this little. Does that overlay? Yeah, the overlay does show up in the there where it's all streamed and everything else. Technically, this is kind of like VDI, but a little bit different. You could do so much with all these other things. I'm like, we can build applications at this level. I don't know that we really need VDI where we're trying to emulate the system, because it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But that's the thing. More and more things are going to web-based applications. So that's, yeah. Where VDI really shines, if you had high security applications and high value data, you don't want stolen laptop or workstation to equate to stolen data. So every terminal is VDI into that data. But it could also just be a web browser, and the application could run in the web browser where you also don't have that same problem. So you're just moving. You think about the extra layers involved in VDI versus the fewer layers involved in a nice web application for things. That's the part I'm pointing out. VDI is useful when you have data that cannot leave a data center for compliance, legal, security reasons. Example, restricting source code access, VDI workstations, not company products. But if you have all the code editor, all of it working in the browser, once again, it doesn't leave. Well, web browsers cache local data, but it's not like you can't exfil data when you connect to a VDI solution and have a screen scraper. Or hey, why not? Let's just install on the workstation. Here's a great solution to this. We're going to install Microsoft's new, is it called Recall? I think this new terrible idea no one asked for, that monitors the screen and captures all the data as you go. There we go. Now we're exfiltrating data with built-in tools from Microsoft, even if you connect to a VDI solution. There you go. You haven't really solved any problem. You've just changed where the problem is, but the problem isn't solved in any meaningful way. If you have everything as a web application, we would live in a way easier world. Yes. If you're worried about local storage, just ensure that it's encrypted. Yes. And many VDI hosts preclude it. And for any VDI host you show precluding it, I will probably find someone who has a workaround where they can still do that. So that's and the Microsoft Recall thing is a perfect example. If it's on the screen, there's a way to capture it. If I have access to the data to input, there's a way to capture that data. At some point, it's not simple to stop the data loss prevention. All the DLP tools are only so good at when it comes to doing that. Yeah, it's the legacy apps. I completely get why people have VDI. We definitely have customers running it. I believe we have some customers still running some Horizon stuff from Verizon, or not Verizon, VMware, Horizon VMware, in order to have a VDI solution. It exists. It's a band-aid on the fact that we're still delivering things via COBOL right now. So oh, I think screenshots are actually really good. If you have a screen recording app that will then OCR it on the fly, like essentially, I imagine it's not even doing OCR. That I don't think the technical details for how Microsoft's new Copilot Recall or whatever it's called does it. I believe it's not even bothering with OCR because it has direct access. But even OCRing it wouldn't be that hard to do. To manage remote hosts, how do you get into their environment to manage stuff? We have several tools. We use Screen Connect. We use our RMM tool if we need to push scripts. So we can also, Auvik also has the ability to proxy a connection for us. So there's multiple ways depending on what we're managing on how do we get in and manage things. Yeah. We can't discount VDI entirely. Oh, I agree. It's to go back to the question it was kind of asked earlier. One of the problems is people go, why isn't there someone developing a new VDI solution? Because it's hard to get people to move off of whatever they're using, even if that thing they're using is VMware Horizon or the Citrix, you know, VDI solution. So it's not like a growing marketplace. It's like, oh, cool. I could spend a lot of money and maybe get clients to move from one of those other companies to me. It's one of those, I don't think there's a lot of companies willing to put the engineering effort into trying to build a competing product. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone has a great idea on how to do it, but my feelings are it's not a hot market that a lot of people are moving into. Avid keeps promising me a free AP or switch if I try their stuff. Yep. But I don't have 5 switches plugged in. Yeah. Yeah. So supply chases demand. Yeah. It's not that trust me, we are supporting old legacy things all over the place. I can wish those don't exist, but people pay us money to manage some of the old legacy things that exist. I don't know, as I haven't talked to one of the clients in a while. We used to talk to them from time to time. One of the funny things is they have a Windows 95 machine that runs their laser cutter. And it's one of those ain't broke, don't fix it. The machine's like, I don't know, $100,000, not to mention the tooling, because this is a production line and it goes through a production line and passes through the machine, and the machine just etches serial numbers with a laser on it. No one really wants to replace the Windows 95 machine because it works. And if you replace them, you can't just replace the computer. You have to replace the software, the laser cutter, and then retool it back into their production line. So it's as long as it keeps cutting with that or it keeps etching with that laser, it will continue to run Windows 95. Can you change the management VLAN in UniFi? Far as I know, to my knowledge, that's not a feature they removed. Windows recall, what a feature. Yes. Yeah. Oh, this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because what they did was pretty smart. They've went on eBay and bought a stack of the same computers and motherboards and hard drives. They've duplicated and cloned the hard drive. And the only thing that really changes is the model and serial number. So as long as if it stops, and it has, they just find the last serial number it did and put it back into the counter with one of the duplicated cloned machines. Yeah, they just cloned a bunch of them. I thought it was a clever, like, we just went on eBay and bought 10 more of these things. At some point, they will run out of them, but those machines last quite a while from back then. So yeah, it's kind of funny. You just image the hard drive and you buy the same computer over and over again. It just runs off a serial port. So eventually someone could probably reverse engineer the protocols it's using and make it work, because it is all serial. It's not network connected, of course, because it's too old for that. So yeah. Oh no, this long predates the software having some type of. I think the software, because we did this, we used to support years ago. They finally started getting rid of them, or the guy went out of business that was doing it. There was a niche company here in Detroit, but they service like pretty big area. They fixed DOS running machines, and I helped them fix a handful of them that ran paper presses. The demand is oddly still niche. There's like some law publications that actually want a monthly newspaper, but supply chases demand, as was noted earlier. There's not anyone building new newspaper machines. So you have to rely on the old stock of machines that print newspapers. And the last update to any software was this DOS application that was really common. And as one company would support it, and it just runs serial port hookups to load up and manage the printing presses that run newspapers. It's kind of a weird niche. And once again, the guy just had collections and collections of old hardware. He traveled around the United States or anywhere really, I guess, and he would buy these machines at auctions and had a warehouse full of spare parts. It made he could charge whatever he wanted, as he said. He might have just retired. I don't know that he went out of business. He might have just retired. He made a fortune because he was like the guy, the person you called to fix your newspaper machine. And there wasn't anyone else that knew how to fix it. So it's I helped him with a handful of, he was a really cool guy. It's one of those weird things. Like and some people we'll just buy a new one before we'll pay that. He goes, yeah, everyone says that till they realize people aren't making these presses anymore. And a new one is not like an option. There's not like a company making giant newspaper printing machines anymore, but there's still just enough demand to keep that as a serviceable, or he seemed to make a good living at it, type of business. Yeah, matter of fact, borrow from my other title if you want to give a talk. One of the things I do, because make it about them. So instead of saying how I would hack you, that's not bad. I like that title too. But for a less technical crowd, and specifically at Chambers of Commerce, when I did this public talk, and I have a video on it, you can find and pull what you want out of there for your in-person talk. I called it Protecting the Digital You. And, what do you got to do to protect the digital footprint that you leave around? And I would do a whole talk around that. It's kind of good for talking it to bringing that type of talk to someone who's kind of the average technical user that works at a business. But hey, how I would hack you might be fun too. I know it's definitely fun at the MSP conferences. I had a case with software requiring a hardware key to connect the machine to validate the license. Current OS direct hardware access is sandbox, Windows 95, so it won't work. Yeah, you run into those from time to time. I mean, here's a fun one too. And me and Jason will do a video. I don't even know if he's still on here, but Jason helped rescue a 20-plus-year-old SCO box with a database on it. So that's going to be, I want to do a video on it because I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be one of those, yeah, this is interesting. But yeah, old SCO box, and we managed to save the database, all the stuff on there, get it transferred over into a virtual environment, and it was definitely fun. In 2002, NASA had to buy 88 CPUs off of a space shuttle to keep the space shuttle fleet going. If it ain't broke. Yeah. There's you build a lot of stability and engineering around there, and you don't want to retool it. You need some of that old stuff floating around. What would you recommend for a hardware firewall that works well with the? I don't know why you'd want a second firewall. The UniFi Dream Machine is a firewall, so I don't understand the question. I don't recommend two firewalls. It just creates more confusion, like double NAT. I'm always playing with stupid memes. I haven't posted this one yet, as I don't know if I like it yet. We'll let you guys judge my stupid memes. But no, I was thinking about this the other day, and it kind of came from a talk I was hearing it. Endpoint stopping keyloggers and spyware, Microsoft installing a keylogging and spying. I mean, it's like your endpoint solutions are going, hey, we watch for behaviors. Oh crap, Microsoft's own behavior is keylogging and spying. All right, now how do we protect against the thing on there? So yeah. Yeah, good old Copilot. Mostly the TrueNAS. I did cover the TrueNAS earlier in the video. You can rewind to it, but the update, definitely do it. That's a yes. It's a bunch of bug fixes, but the bigger announcement is Docker's coming. So I summed it up in way less words than I used before. What if you need a 100 gig line rate? I don't know. There's Palo Alto, Cisco makes some stuff. I forget how fast Tensor can go. We don't have any production clients with the new Tensor stuff out there, but I know it goes pretty fast. Grammarly? No, I don't use Grammarly. I was interested. Yeah, the sandbox feature. I don't. I don't know. I haven't really looked at that much. It's interesting, but I haven't really dug into it. Yeah, Cisco 9K series. It's the prices jump up a lot when you get into that. Like someone emailed me like, "Oh, we want to build out a 100 gig network." I'm like, "Hey, cool. We're building one out for another client. Do you want to see the pricing on this stuff?" It's rather high, no problem. It's not that we can't. It's just people get a little sticker shock when they start looking at some of these. I this one we're building out with Arista switches, and people are like, "Oh, those are $30,000 switches." Yes, they are. How many did you need again? Once you start building out really high capacity 100 gig networks, it's really cool. It does the trick, but it's also not cheap. Neither is the cables or anything for it. Why would you not virtualize Windows 95 and all stuff like that? It was more of a headache to get that working. With the pass through and it all is serial controlled. It doesn't even have networking on it because it doesn't need it. So the serial controls on it. I mean, you can pass through a serial card, but why add the abstraction layer? They just bought a bunch of PCs. I thought that was funny. Double firewall makes complete sense if you think about endpoint firewalls, but I know that is a stink question. Uh, yeah, I mean, you can use multiple firewalls. I, that's an up to you thing. I mean, you could also say, well, I'm going to stack like 7 different brands of firewall and NAT them all together because that way, if there's a flaw in the first one, as long as they don't find a flaw in the next 6 firewalls, I'm safe. I mean, I guess it seems pretty. Just use one pfSense and call it a day. Um, I could really do a required CPU minimum chart for pfSense and what line speeds. They have them on. I mean, you can reverse engineer that information very easily by heading over to pfSense. They tell you the line speeds, they tell you the routing speeds on there, and they're actually really small. You don't need even, I mean, you can do I forget what model processors in mind, but I have the 4200 and it's a relatively newer CPU, but what's the model on it? Or is it just, oh, it's a C110. So let's go here. I mean, you figure mine can do that with an Intel C110 and it scores not particularly high. It's a 4-core, 4-thread, and this will do gigabit routing. But obviously, if this will do gigabit, you could probably go to an older i5 and probably, but there are some limitations of getting like 10 gig. 2.5 gig should be fine, but it's there. But if you just look at what they have available on pfSense's website, you can reverse engineer that information pretty easily. There is no reporting as good as there that I'm aware of inside of pfSense that can do reports like that. I never looked at the reports on Untangle. We used to sell some Untangles. We don't really sell that many anymore. The reporting's cool. I never cared about it much. Like it was a neat feature when I reviewed the firewall. It was not a feature I use very often, though, in the reality of things. I like the UniFi switches. If you're looking for budget but don't mind a weird UI, MikroTik is probably the other one on there. Um, If you don't trust what's going back to UniFi based on how they force you to pull from their web interface with on all mobile apps, then you would put UDM behind a packet filter. If you don't trust it, don't use it. That's like if you say, I don't trust these firewalls by UniFi, then don't use the firewall by UniFi. That would seem logical to me. Maybe I'm missing a piece of it here. But you can also, and I've done this, you don't have to tie the UniFi firewall to their site manager. That is an option, not a requirement. I know for a little while it was a requirement, but when you're setting them up, it's an option, not a requirement as of today. I don't waste my time trying to get clients to move away from Windows desktops. Mostly because their line of business applications is why they're doing it. I mean, there are a growing number of people using, especially young companies, as I might call them. My wife took a job at Blumera. They use Mac. Lots of companies use Mac now, especially companies that have all web-based applications because they don't need to run anything local. Well, the local apps they run, Slack, run fine on a Mac. I don't really push people to Linux though, not commercial businesses and stuff. Oh, let's see. Two and a half gig is a thing because so many people have walls filled with Cat 5e and they don't want to replace it. They force you to review things through the web if you want things like doorbell alerts on your phone, but definitely agree with your point. Yeah. I mean, well, if you want notifications, you're going to have them relayed somewhere. You can set it up, and I use, for example, Home Assistant, so my notifications can be set up directly, but that requires setting up a VPN and having everything talk directly. So it's one of those, you're trading convenience and security again. If you don't want them to know who's ringing your doorbell, then you don't use the product of the company you don't want to have tied to the doorbell. There's I wonder how many have switched to Linux. I have found that people are willing to tolerate some egregious amounts of privacy problems before they'll ever do that. So there's that. Awesome. Home Assistant is just one of those things that I'm such a huge fan of. Um, I I have everything tied to it. I'm not worried. Like, oh, look, even my cameras are tied to it. So I know, the car's still in the garage and it's sunny outside or there's a package. I even have sensors for, knowing if things are wet or dry. Uh, all the studio lights and cameras are all controlled through here. I can turn things on and off. I just think Home Assistant, man, it's been one of my favorite projects for a while. So yeah, definitely good to see you doing some diving into Home Assistant. It's a rabbit hole for sure. The enterprise response will be we turned it off. You can turn it off, and that's going to be the enterprise response. There's going to be a group policy that says no. that's how the enterprise response is pretty much going to be. I don't know if it's the second biggest, but it's certainly a huge project. It's I don't know where it ranks in terms of the biggest project, but for sure it's a huge project. You mentioned doing some log seek videos a couple times. I hope you get to this for one being interested. I thought about it for another reason, and that other reason is whoops. This right here. Let me share it. So we were talking about how like this is my done list, some of the done things I have. Um it's just wild all the notes you can start building inside of LogSeek. So it's just I have a lot on my later list right now. I need to get those. Then they tie over to my to-do list. And then we have this right here, which is, oh yeah, OpenSense debate for TrueNAS forums. There's a lot of open source firewall history. I was noticing all the things in there. LogSeek is cool. It's definitely a fun way to dive into things. Maybe I will do a video because I've had a few staff at CNWR asking about it. So I might do a video, which if I do a video, I won't just do it for the staff. I'll talk about how I use it and how I do knowledge management with them. So good to assume. I mean, there'll probably be a way to tie that to Home Assistant. I don't see why not. I don't use it, so I'm not likely to do a video on this. I have too many other things in my backlog to stop and set something up that I'll only. Here's the challenge: setting something up only for a video is a lot harder because then I got to set it up, tie it to everything, sit down and read documentation, and then I do the video and then I throw it away. I just don't have a use case where I need it in my environment. So I'm not likely to do a video on it. I have a backlog, a long backlog. That's why that to-do list in LogSeek is so big. I have a long backlog of videos I'm trying to catch up on right now of the things I do use because I'm much more fluent in the things I do use and I can provide much more insight, especially much of my insight. For example, my UniFi video where I talked about long-term reviews comes from lots of usage. So there's lots of insights. My pfSense videos, we use commercially pfSense. It's not just Tom's lab of pfSense. This is deployed at clients, deployed as consulting projects, integrated into lots of projects. So I bring forth a lot of those videos. They're a little bit easier for me to do. Same with TrueNAS and XCP&G. I'm doing consulting. I just had a consulting job the other day. I just sent out more booking links for people to buy more consulting time for me on virtualization discussions. So I'm much more fluent and do more videos on those than tools I don't use. So I mean, it's cool. And I think a few people have done videos on Observian, but yeah. Um, I don't think that's a question that comes up. We can track it through Auvik, but I don't know that it's a common uh, question that pops up of what's the interface utilization across our clients. It's not needed. So would you be willing to upload your notes from Logseek? Love to see what notes you have, especially in XCP-NG. I they're already done in videos usually, but I can share them here. I'll take and put these on GitHub. They're just tools you might use. Like, hey, how do you rename an Ethernet? I send these internally to people. Hey, can you export a VM and import it over SSH? Yes, you can actually, and this command will do that for you. A little bit if you want to get the status of a raid and do that. Little common questions people ask, and I can copy and paste them when I'm talking to people. There's little discussions I may have going on about something, but yeah, there's nothing in here that I haven't mentioned in a varied number of videos, because if I just give you the notes, they lack context. They're all part of the videos that I've done. I will admit, though, I have not done a video on renaming networks. But by the way, this is copied and pasted from their documentation. So it's not, once again, also not really a secret. But yeah, this is how I build notes, and I'm able to pull things. It's faster for me to pull this up in LogSeek than it would be to pull it up in their documentation. Uh, do, do, do. How do you know if WAN links are saturated? What about error discard? It's just not a problem we run into. You can look at a client. If we're constantly getting telemetry from our clients. If we're not getting telemetry, we know there's a problem, and we can know that problem prior to the client because we'll get a down notice because the endpoints aren't getting on there. But people have so much bandwidth today. That's just, we don't go, oh man, this client, man, they're just really sucking up bandwidth. It's not a common issue. I don't use Starlink, and I don't know that I'm going to buy Starlink just for that either. Yeah, I see someone else kind of reiterating. Interface utilization is something you peck at when there's an issue. Slow down. Until then, traffic graphs tell you everything you need to know. Yeah, it's just not a real a big issue. I probably have a plugin in LogSeek for that. There's a copy paste plugin, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look. Oh, yep, there is. There's the copy code plugin. I have bullet threading, copy code, copy URL, and a table editor. A table editor I don't use very much. I don't put too many tables in here, but the copy code plugin is the solution for that one. I'm jealous my company would never let us deploy things like pfSense. We won't even deploy Supermicro servers. We only deploy HPE and storage. Well, doesn't sound fun. Let's see. Hello, Tom. Hello, everyone. Yes. It's nobody, it's just one of those things. It's not, we don't have a bunch of low bandwidth clients either. Maybe it's just the niche of client we have. Many of them, not many, maybe, I don't know what percentage. There's a good percentage of them though have redundant connections. It's just it's not a problem that we run into that much. LogSeek is a standalone application. So LogSeek, and we'll pull it up real quick. So I'm going to wind this down here shortly, but it's logseek.com. It's a cross-platform app. I think I was complaining earlier about things should be web apps. This is not a web app, but I kind of like it not being a web app, so I'm okay with this. Yeah, but this isn't a challenge we're running into with clients. Like we investigate when there's a problem, but across I think there's like 100 managed clients or so. There's not that many issues with them. But yeah, LogSeek is a standalone application. It's just, I kind of like the UI. I love that it's open source. I love that the backend is nothing but a series of markdown files, making it extremely portable, not locked in, and just kind of I don't know. I just like things that are like it automatically figures out like, hey, I'm running Linux. So it says download for Linux. But it will, if you go to downloads here, you've got Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android. I believe though, the Android one, and I don't know why. So iOS, they have the App Store. The Android one, you got a side load. Is what it is. Yes, Tom now loves OpenSense and Proxmox. That must be it. Does LogSeek only is self-hosted, so it is a standalone application. There is not a. They're working on some type of syncing tool. It's in beta or development. I think. I don't know. I don't plan to use it ever. I sync everything with SyncThing. Because I'm using SyncThing, I don't care about. Matter of fact, specifically, I have a Tom's Notes SyncThing. There's 571 note files in there. There's a lot of notes in there. But I have a dedicated, specifically under home launch system, Tom's Notes, synced across all my devices. Yep, SyncThing and LogSeek. SyncThing is to me also things like graphics I'm working on, business docs. These are all done here. Like right here's the flight receipt. I save it. I still use local file management, which seems to be odd to some people because if people ask me, I don't use Nextcloud. I'm like, why? I don't want to use Nextcloud. I don't need that. QoS or packet loss, you don't need those. The reason I did the buffer bloat video is because in my previous buffer bloat video, it was an older one, so it needed to be redone because it was done with an older version of pfSense. The problem I didn't probably emphasize enough that you just don't need to have fine-grained packet control over in the other queues in order to get it to work. You just need buffer bloat and you'll solve 99%, probably 99.9% of the problems of the modern era of buffer problems. The too many people were getting hung up on the QoS stuff, and I just wanted to kind of move on from it and go, you don't have to worry about the QoS stuff, just worry about that. So it's one of my big impetuses for doing it. There's not another gotcha that I can come up with. I used to refer people to my older Buffalo video. I've actually done, this is the third iteration of it, by the way. It's been around for years, so it's not a new thing. I used to just reference, because it's been in a documentation for so long with pfSense, and I used to reference that. There was a live stream from 6 or 7 years ago, maybe longer, when the people over at Netgate used to do their live streams. I think Jim Pringle did that video. So yeah, it's not a new problem, and it doesn't affect everybody. It depends on your situation. That's one of the things, like people going, hey, it got worse after I set up buffer bloat and started messing with it. I'm like, well, what was it before? Well, it was A plus, and then I tweaked it, and now it's not. I'm like, well, ain't broke. Don't break it. Regarding syncing, been using it for years. Recently found out that on Android, you can configure to automatically turn on sync when charging. Mind blown. Yes. Because it used to in the past be known for sucking up a lot of battery. So yeah. So I think that's where I'm going to end it here. I think I've got all the questions caught up and answered. How do you manage IP addresses, netbacks? We are talking about using Netbox, but it's not much of an issue. All the stuff gets documented by Auvik, as I'd mentioned earlier, and I just use spreadsheets because it's easy, and spreadsheets get the job done. But we also manage things with our Hoodoo is what we use for IT documentation, HUDU. So those things that's been around for a while now. But hey, thanks everyone for joining. This was lots of fun as always. Looking forward to the next one. Maybe if I'm feeling froggy, I might do a live stream, because I'm working on a video that I don't know. It's the number of people asking about OpenSense that, and I just probably am working on a video. Maybe I'll do as a live stream where I don't want to use the word rant, but there may be some ranting, talking about why I don't use OpenSense. Like, there's so much of the OpenSense fan club that has been messaging me in forums and tagging me in places that I said, yeah, maybe I do need to do a video on why I don't bother with OpenSense. And, it's, I just don't have an interest in it. And there's this weird thing where people like, apparently part of their personality is defined by the firewall they use. And they seem to have a lot of anger towards me for not liking their firewall. And I don't understand it. So I'm just going to put a video out there. And like, here's my reasons. In what I put for the intro basically is I'll call the video why I'm not using OpenSense, and that's my first line in the video. This video is called why I'm not using OpenSense. It's not called why you're not using OpenSense. I don't care if you use OpenSense. Use it. I'm just not going to do videos in OpenSense because I don't use it. Here's why. If you say, Tom, I don't like those reasons, then don't. I hope I'm not your source of truth on all things. I will give honest answers of how I came to these conclusions, which, by the way, it just comes down to them being behind all the time, catching up to pfSense, especially in security and in other ways. Like, for example, they're getting OpenVPN DCO. Cool. pfSense got that 17 months ago. It's been a minute. So they are pulling downstream from what Netgate contributes upstream. Cool. That's fine. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use them, but it means you're going to get the features later. It's not that complicated to me. So, yeah, I don't really, to me, that's like simple. They have more security issues and they're slower to get those security things patched. so I don't use them. But I don't know, maybe it needs a video. So that way I can just refer to that video as a reply to all the people that love commenting on there. So fun stuff. What about pfSense Plus versus Community? What about going from Plus back to Community? You can go back and forth. I've got a video on how to do it for those that want to do that. It's kind of one of those things, and yeah, you can go back and forth. They're not stopping you from doing it. Well, like I said, it just becomes a big circular debate. I'll make that a dedicated video, and maybe I'll do it as a live stream, because live streams, if I do it, I try to be so concise while I'm doing like a tutorial video. This isn't a tutorial. This is a, why I'm not using it, and I'll welcome all the people, everyone's feedback on that, that comes from it. So, let's see. Okay, so yeah. Yep, they do not have the Plus version for the home lab anymore, but you get Plus for free if you get their hardware. So if you're buying their hardware, cool. If you're not, then yeah. Look at the pfSense Plus features and see if there's features you like. I think the one home lab feature people really like is going to be the boot rollbacks. Is it worth it for you? I like them. We have all Netgate hardware at our clients, so it's not really an issue for us. We get that feature. But if you're not running Netgate hardware, do you buy a license so you can, have the rollback feature? I think it's really cool. I'll leave that up to you. It's kind of a you question if whether or not you want to do it. But I'll leave it at that. As I started winding this down, I will actually wind it down. So I'm going to go outside and touch grass and go enjoy things. All right, everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time.